It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The air feels heavy, thick with the kind of suffocating summer humidity that makes even standing still feel exhausting. Behind your house, in the middle of that green, sun-soaked sanctuary, your flock is in trouble, real trouble, unfolding in silence. You step outside to check on them, and what do you find? Your favorite hens are crowded together, their beaks held wide open as they pant in a fast, strained rhythm. Their wings are lifted away from their bodies, desperately trying to catch even the faintest breath of moving air. They stand over the water fountain and stare down into it, yet none of them will drink. Why? Because by noon, the water has already turned into lukewarm bathwater, and for a chicken, warm water is practically useless. Most of us react to this scene exactly as the modern world has taught us. We panic. We rush online, searching for something we can buy. A powerful electric cooling fan, an automatic misting system, or some expensive high-tech cooling device. But what if the secret to keeping your flock safe, healthy, and thriving through the harshest heat waves required no electricity, no complicated setup, and no painful hit to your wallet? What if all you needed was $6, a few recycled materials, and an old piece of wisdom passed down through generations of off-grid farmers? Welcome back to Farmyard Care, the place where we reconnect with the earth, recover old-world farming wisdom, and learn to care for our animals in ways that honor their natural design. Today, we're entering the quiet, resilient world of Amish farms in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We're going to uncover a simple $6 cooling trick that can keep your chicken's water cold and clear until nightfall. But beyond that, we'll explore how working with nature, rather than trying to overpower it with machines, can change not only the way you manage your coop, but also the way you see homesteading itself. So pour yourself a glass of iced tea, settle into a shady spot, and let's begin. Have you ever wondered how animals survived, and even thrived, for thousands of years before anyone invented the plug-in fan? Let's find out. Part 1. The biological mystery. Why summer becomes a silent crisis for chickens. To understand why chickens struggle so intensely during summer, we first need to understand the remarkable and sometimes challenging biology of the bird itself. Did you know that a healthy chicken's normal body temperature ranges from 105 degrees Fahrenheit to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, or approximately 40.5 degrees Celsius to 41.6 degrees Celsius? Think about that for a moment. Even on a mild, pleasant spring day, a chicken's body is already warmer than a human suffering from a high fever. They spend their entire lives close to the edge of their biological limits. And making matters even more difficult, chickens cannot sweat. They have no sweat glands at all. So how does a bird covered in feathers manage to cool itself? Nature has given chickens a very specific and limited set of tools. First, they open their beaks and begin panting. This moves warm air across the moist membranes of their respiratory system, allowing heat to escape through evaporation. Second, they hold their wings away from their bodies, exposing the thinner, unfeathered skin underneath to the surrounding air. Third, they release heat through their highly vascular combs, wattles, and feet. Once the temperature rises above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, your flock begins entering the danger zone. At 100 degrees Fahrenheit and higher, their margin of safety disappears almost completely. When a chicken's body becomes overwhelmed by heat, one of the first functions her system shuts down is egg production. Why? Because a single egg is made up of nearly 75% water. When water is limited and temperatures are high, a hen's body sees egg laying as a luxury it can no longer afford, the first thing that must be rationed. Isn't it remarkable how the body knows exactly what it must release in order to survive? In our own lives, when we face intense pressure or emotional heat, which creative luxuries do we sacrifice first? And what essential part of ourselves do we fight hardest to protect? Understanding this biology changes everything. It shows us that our responsibility as caretakers is not to force a chicken's body to cool down. Our job is to create the environmental conditions that allow her natural cooling systems to function without becoming exhausted. And that process begins with the temperature of her drinking water. Part 2. The Brine Core Solution. Revealing the $6 Amish trick visit. A traditional Amish farm in Lancaster County, on a scorching August afternoon, and you will not hear the steady hum of an electric fan. Yet when you step inside the shaded coop, you may find cool, refreshing water, surrounded by calm, well-hydrated hens, returning to drink throughout the day. How is that possible? The answer lies in a clever, low-tech use of basic physics: the frozen saltwater brine bottle. Ironically, plain folk farmers originally developed this technique to solve the opposite problem: to stop chicken water from freezing during bitter winters when temperatures dropped as low as 9 degrees Celsius. The principle behind it is known as freezing point depression. When salt is dissolved into water until the mixture becomes fully saturated, it creates a brine. Unlike fresh water, which freezes at 32 degrees Celsius, this saltwater mixture has a freezing point that falls as low as -6 degrees Celsius or -21 degrees Celsius. During summer, however, that same physical principle can be reversed and used to create a powerful passive cooling core. And you can make it for almost nothing. Start with a clean, recycled plastic soda bottle or juice jug. A 2-liter bottle or half-gallon container works perfectly. Fill it about 4/5 of the way with water, leaving enough empty space for expansion so the bottle will not burst. Add coarse salt until the water becomes fully saturated. Shake the bottle thoroughly, seal it securely, and freeze it solid overnight. The following morning, place the sealed, frozen brine bottle directly inside your chicken's waterer. But why not simply pour loose ice cubes into the water? The difference is how quickly they melt. Loose ice cubes have a large surface area compared with their mass, so they can disappear in only about 20 minutes. Once they melt, the cooling effect is gone, and the drinking water immediately begins warming again. A large sealed bottle of frozen brine behaves very differently. It melts slowly from the outside toward the center. Instead of disappearing all at once, it works like a thermal cold sink, steadily drawing heat from the surrounding drinking water throughout the afternoon. Because the bottle remains completely sealed, the salt never enters the fresh water. Your chickens receive clean, clear, ice-cold drinking water throughout the day without changing its purity. The entire setup costs almost nothing, roughly $6 for recycled bottles, salt, and the electricity required to freeze them. It is simple, elegant, and remarkably effective. Part 3. The danger of temperature whiplash. Understanding acclimation. In our desire to help our animals, we humans often have a dangerous habit of overcorrecting. We see a hen panting, feel the crushing heat ourselves, and immediately want to shock her body with something extremely cold. But in biology, sudden and dramatic temperature changes can sometimes be far more dangerous than steady, predictable heat. Animal behaviorists describe this as the temperature whiplash effect. What happens when you repeatedly throw loose ice cubes into the water or offer heavily frozen treats several times throughout the day? The chicken's internal body temperature drops artificially and very quickly, but because loose ice melts so fast, that cooling effect may disappear within 15 minutes. Now her body, which had slowly begun adapting to the heat of the summer day, is suddenly forced to work harder to warm itself internally, even though the air around her remains intensely hot. When this cycle of sudden cold and rapid warming repeats again and again, her thermoregulatory system becomes overwhelmed by conflicting signals. Her blood vessels constrict in confusion. Her heart rate rises, and instead of preventing heat stroke, this repeated temperature shock can actually trigger it. An even greater mistake is spraying chickens directly with a hose or sprinkler. It may sound refreshing, but chickens have feathers, not gills. Their feathers are a masterpiece of natural engineering. During hot weather, chickens fluff them outward, creating small channels that allow air to move near the skin and carry heat away. When you soak a chicken with water, those feathers become wet, heavy, and flattened. They stick tightly against her body, collapsing the natural air channels and trapping heat against her skin instead of allowing it to escape. How often do we make the same mistake in our own lives? When we face a difficult or emotionally hot situation, do we reach for quick, dramatic, artificial solutions that make long-term recovery even harder? Do we create emotional whiplash for ourselves instead of allowing time to adjust and build resilience? Steady, gentle, and natural methods are always the better choice. Properly cooled water, dependable shade, and a slowly melting brine core work with a chicken's natural design rather than fighting against it. Part 4. Mastering the elements. Engineering shade around the moving sun. If water is the fuel that keeps chickens alive through summer, then shade is their shield. But not every patch of shade offers the same protection, and this is where many chicken keepers make a serious mistake. Think about the shade around your coop right now. Perhaps you arranged the run or placed the waterer in a cool, shaded corner during spring. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the location looked perfect. But have you returned to inspect that exact spot at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? The sun never stays in one place. A corner that feels cool and protected at breakfast can become a blazing greenhouse by the middle of the afternoon. If your hens or their waterer are exposed to direct sunlight during the hottest part of the day, the water can become hot enough to burn their beaks, while their bodies quickly move toward heat exhaustion. To manage shade properly, you need to think like an engineer. Walk through your yard at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when the heat is at its strongest. Place your hand flat against the chicken waterer. If it feels warm to you, it feels hot to your birds, and they may already have stopped drinking from it. Here is how to create deep, dependable shade. The plant canopy. Grow sunflowers along the edges of the chicken run. They can reach heights of up to 10 feet, creating broad natural shade during the hottest months. In autumn, they provide delicious seeds, and in winter, they disappear, allowing the warmth of the sun to return. The material matters. When building a shade structure, choose light-colored or reflective materials. A black roof or dark tarp absorbs heat and radiates it directly downward onto the flock. White painted panels or a white corrugated steel roof reflect the sun's rays and can keep the area beneath them as much as 15 degrees cooler. The cooling dust bath. Chickens naturally scratch shallow depressions in loose soil for dust bathing. The dirt cleans their feathers and removes excess oils that can trap heat. More importantly, the ground only a few inches beneath the surface remains noticeably cooler than the surrounding air. By lightly dampening the soil in a shaded location, you can create a natural cooling pad where your chickens can dig down and press their bodies against the cooler earth. Shade is not only about blocking sunlight, it is also about creating a protected place where the body can rest. How are we creating shade within our own busy modern lives? Are we guarding our energy during the hottest, most demanding hours of our day? Part 5. Hydration Psychology. The selective flock and the spaced waterer chickens are surprisingly psychological animals, especially when drinking water is involved. You may assume that any thirsty animal will drink whatever water is available, but chickens can be remarkably selective. When their water becomes warm, stagnant, or dirty, they may stubbornly refuse to touch it, choosing dehydration rather than drinking something unpleasant. Warm water also promotes the rapid growth of algae and harmful bacteria, transforming an ordinary waterer into a dangerous science experiment almost overnight. That is why providing clean, cool, and fresh water every day is a responsibility that cannot be ignored. A gravity-fed waterer, fitted with sealed stainless steel valves, can make an enormous difference. It keeps the water clean, blocks the light that encourages algae growth, and ensures that the flock always has access to a fresh drinking source. But during a heat wave, another psychological barrier inside the flock can become deadly: the pecking order. Every flock has dominant boss hens and quieter subordinate birds at the bottom of the hierarchy. During a mild spring day, this social order may seem like nothing more than a small inconvenience. Lower-ranking chickens simply stand back and wait until the others have finished. During a heat wave, however, having only one water station can become a death sentence. Dominant hens may position themselves directly in front of the waterer and aggressively drive away any lower-ranking bird that tries to approach. Afraid of being pecked, timid hens can retreat into a hot corner of the run and quietly become dehydrated, even while the waterer remains completely full. The answer is simple, inexpensive, and potentially life-saving. Provide several water stations and place them far apart. You do not need expensive equipment. An old shallow pan, another basic water fountain, or a recycled bucket can work perfectly. What matters most is the distance between them. Position the waterers on opposite sides of the yard, or run, ideally where they cannot be seen from one another. When two stations are 15 feet apart, a single dominant hen cannot defend both at the same time. She must leave one unguarded to protect the other, giving timid birds the opportunity to drink without being chased away. This tiny adjustment takes only a couple of minutes, but it can mean the difference between a complete, healthy flock and an unexplained loss. Part 6. Natural remedies and thermal buffers. Clay, herbs, and the cooling power of the earth. Before the industrial age introduced plastic and steel, farmers depended on the natural qualities of traditional materials to control temperature. Among the strongest passive cooling tools available to them were unglazed clay and the ground beneath their feet. Have you ever wondered why water kept inside an unglazed terracotta pot remains remarkably cool, even during a scorching day? The reason is that clay is porous. Water slowly travels through the microscopic channels within the clay walls and begins to evaporate when it reaches the warm, dry air outside. This natural evaporation draws heat directly from the water inside, keeping it pleasantly cool without electricity or any connection to the power grid. Another old technique is to sink part of the waterer into the ground. Only 1 or 2 feet beneath the surface, the earth maintains a steady, cool temperature, protected from the direct heat of the sun. By digging a shallow hole in a shaded area and tightly packing damp soil around the sides of the waterer, you can tap into that deeper geothermal coolness. The moist earth surrounding the container becomes a natural cooling jacket, helping the water remain cooler for hours. We can also support chickens from within by using cooling herbs. Nature offers an entire collection of plants that can help birds handle the stress of extreme heat. Peppermint. Peppermint contains menthol, which naturally activates cold receptors in the body. It creates a cooling sensation while helping to open the respiratory pathways. Sage. Sage helps naturally lower the amount of internal metabolic heat the body produces. Lemon balm. Lemon balm is a soothing herb that helps reduce the stress, panic, and feather-plucking behavior caused by extreme temperatures. Red clover. Red clover supports circulation around the outer parts of the body, helping the heart and vascular system move blood efficiently toward the comb, wattles, and feet, so heat can be released. You can crush a small handful of fresh mint, sage, or lemongrass leaves and allow them to float directly in the drinking water. It is refreshing, beneficial, and works as a completely natural immune booster. Part 7. Emergency Protocol. Recognizing and rescuing a hen in distress. Even with the best preparation, an extreme heat wave can sometimes push an older, vulnerable, or heavy-breed hen beyond her limit. As chicken keepers, we must recognize the exact moment when prevention is no longer enough and a true medical emergency has begun. Moderate panting and resting quietly in the shade are normal behaviors during hot weather. But when you notice any of the following severe signs, you must act immediately. Heavy, labored breathing accompanied by a loud, raspy clicking or whistling sound. A comb and wattles that appear pale, discolored, or shriveled. Extreme weakness, complete isolation from the flock, or lying flat on her side with her eyes closed. Stumbling, losing her balance, or collapsing entirely. These are signs of heat stroke, and without immediate intervention, she may not survive the afternoon. Here is the exact step-by-step rescue protocol. Step 1. Move her somewhere cool. Gently pick her up and immediately carry her into a cool, shaded, and well-ventilated indoor space. An air-conditioned room or a cool garage with a fan is ideal. Step 2. Use a cool foot bath. Fill a shallow tub or basin with lukewarm to cool water. Never ice-cold water. Stand the hen inside so that only her feet and legs are submerged. This warning is critical. Do not use ice-cold water. Water that is extremely cold can shock her system, causing the blood vessels to constrict and potentially leading to sudden cardiac arrest. Keep her feathers dry as well. The goal is to cool her through her feet, not soak and flatten the feathers that protect her body. Step 3. Rehydrate her with electrolytes. Once she begins to respond and regain some strength, offer room temperature water mixed with electrolytes. Panting causes chickens to lose essential minerals, including sodium, potassium, and magnesium. If you do not have commercial electrolytes available, you can prepare this emergency homemade mixture in only 2 minutes. 1 cup of warm water, 2 teaspoons of sugar for quick energy, 1/8 teaspoon of sea salt, 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda emergence. Mix everything thoroughly, then add 1 cup of this solution to each gallon of fresh drinking water. Continue watching her closely. If she begins to tremble or shiver, gently dry her with a towel, then use a hairdryer on medium heat to finish drying her. Keep her somewhere quiet, safe, and cool until the heat wave has passed. Outro. At the end of the day, caring for a farmyard is not about purchasing the most expensive equipment or trying to out-engineer nature. The true art of animal husbandry comes down to consistency, careful observation, and small acts of kindness repeated every day. It means knowing where the shade falls at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, keeping the water clean, and remembering that a simple shovel and a bucket of water can sometimes accomplish more than the most advanced machine. The plain methods used by the Amish and our homesteading ancestors did not disappear because they stopped working. They faded because they were free, and no one could earn a profit by teaching them to others. But here on this channel, we believe the most valuable knowledge is the kind that belongs to everyone. Knowledge rooted in the earth and built to endure through generations. As you look around your own garden, your chicken coop, or even your busy life today, I want to leave you with one final question. In which parts of your life are you rushing to purchase an expensive, complicated solution, when what you truly need is a return to something simple, natural, and grounded? Thank you for spending this hot afternoon with us here at Farmyard Care. If this video helped you, please press the like button, subscribe to become part of our growing family of earth-minded keepers, and share it with someone who cares deeply about their flock. Tell us in the comments where you keep your chickens, what temperatures you are facing, and which natural methods have protected your birds during a hot spell. We read every comment, and we learn so much from the homesteading experiences you share with us. Until next time, prepare that shaded patch, keep the water cool, watch your flock carefully, and remember to take care of yourselves. Goodbye, friends.